Hey there, Jeremy. How's it going, my friend? I figured that, in lieu of us doing this in person or me typing up a big email, I'd actually just kind of shoot it live, and you could then kind of get, it's almost as if we met at a coffee shop or something like that, right? So what I want to do, what you see on the side right here are your questions, and I just kind of wanted to go through those. Hopefully this is an acceptable means of doing it, but, it's a little more personal than typing, and it is what it is during COVID. So the purpose of this, obviously, is to go through the questions that you answered. I did see the note at the top that if you don't want to answer specific questions for a particular reason, feel free to ignore it. I will try to do my best to go through the majority of these, but of course, keep in mind that I'm, recording myself on video, and, there's always professional risks, especially in today's day and age of, cancel culture and all that, right? So question 1, what fields of engineering are you a part of? And what is your specific job role in those fields? So as you know, I am a chemical engineer by education, but I work for Intel, and I work in the factory. So I work for, in what field? I'm in semiconductor manufacturing. My specific job title is Technology Development Process Engineer. And what that really means is that I spend the majority of my day trying to translate the how to build it to the how to build a million of them a day for a fraction of the cost. That's really what I do. Now, specifically, I'm a wet etch engineer, which is, without going too much into, the process details, my job is to come in after the plasma etchers kind of, plow into the wafer, because that's basically what they do. That's, vertically plow down. My job is to go in and clean up residue, clean up particles. Because as you can imagine, at the size scale that we're dealing with semiconductors these days, a single human hair is, thousands of times bigger than a particle that can actually kill a transistor. So it's very, very important for cleanliness, and my job is to get it clean. And there are, as you can imagine, there are a lot of challenges around that. But, on top of just being a quote-unquote glorified dishwasher, which is kind of what we joke about a lot of times, I have a lot of work in manufacturing, right? I have to make sure that, as you recall, we went through several of the manufacturing engineering stuff, process engineering stuff. I have to make sure that I have enough capacity to get the number of products out per week, per month, and to meet my quota, and that I'm not, killing chips on the wafer, and that what hits into line and what the company can ultimately sell to our customers is meeting the bottom line. So that's really my job. And as a group leader of that, I manage engineers who own the actual process equipment on the floor. And so it's kind of my job to project manage that part of it, as well as make sure that we have the right tooling, we have the right staffing, we have the right processes in place, business processes in place, I should say, to make that happen. Right. Q2, what was your education and training like to get your engineering position at Intel? So I went to undergraduate engineering, you hope, I believe you will. I know you've spoken that you want to do that. So I went, and in undergraduate I got chemical engineering. There is kind of a stigma. So I decided it was actually late junior year, early senior, I decided to go ahead and pursue higher education. There is a bit of a stigma in kind of the graduate school world that in general you're not supposed to go to graduate school the same place that you went to undergraduate. And the reason is they want you to get different learning experiences, which makes sense. However, I had been doing some amount of undergraduate research, so I decided to stay, and they were able to provide me a TA-ship. So I taught a couple of classes the first couple of years I was there, and got that. So in terms of the training to get my engineering position at Intel, I had an internship at Intel. I was unfortunate and fortunate that Hurricane Katrina, which hit in 2005, I believe it was. Yeah, it was late 2005, displaced me. I was at school in New Orleans, and I didn't have anywhere to go for the semester. So I got in contact. I used some personal contacts from back home. I got in touch with some people from Intel who were able to give me an internship that was able to get me into the FA, which is failure analysis labs. So basically what we were doing was ripping chips apart and figuring out why they didn't work, which quite frankly is like the best possible job someone who wants to go into my field could have. So I was very lucky with the way that things worked out there. So it was very much a lemons to lemonade type of deal there. But in terms of learning engineering, right? I mean, we've talked about that in class multiple times that, you know, you're never going to be you're not going. It's not a trade school, right? You're not going to get educated specifically to do the job that you're going to do. Instead, what engineering does is teach you how to learn. So, I mean, I spent, you know, a year and a half to 2 years of the first part of my career at Intel learning how to do what I do. Sometimes by screwing up. I mean, it's just the way it goes, right? So, you know, hopefully you have people there to catch you and make sure that you don't screw up too hard. But, you know, you learn, you make mistakes, and you figure out how it goes. So that's really, you know, the training plan is just to kind of get in there, be brave, and get your hands on and learn, right? And I know that, you know, based on what you've done as well and what you're interested in, that I think you'll be very successful in that. What are my day-to-day responsibilities for my job? I think we covered most of that actually when I answered Q1, because I know I was a little long-winded there. But yeah, I make sure that my process module is able to get the product out, right? The WIP, we talked about that, work in progress, wafers in progress. We were able to get that out and meet our customers' needs. Q4, are there any qualities especially key in engineering? Do you think most of these attributes are something that one develops, is born with, or does it depend? Interesting question. The biggest quality in engineering, at least from what I do, is discipline. You have to be very keyed into making sure that you go through the right steps to ensure there's no risk to the product. You're not taking risks. I mean, safety is important. You can't risk people. That's the biggest. You can't risk somebody getting hurt. You can't risk product because that costs money. You have to be very disciplined in the way that you approach things. That said, I think the inherent, you know, we say all the time, engineering curiosity, which is someone's ability to ask the question why or go above and beyond. And I do think that to a certain extent you're born with that, right? I don't know that you can necessarily be trained to do that. I think that you can learn over time steps to take to lead yourself to that conclusion. But, you know, the kid who wanted to rip things apart and figure out why they worked early on, I think has a distinct advantage from that standpoint. So, you know, whether it's, you know, born with, or you believe in tabula rasa or whatever, I do think that there are people who are young who have a distinct advantage in the engineering field because they want to know why, they want to know how things work. Q5, are there any goals that you would recommend aspiring engineers to have? That's an interesting question as well, because I think that with the way the world changes, especially, you know, when I was younger, I didn't grow up with the internet as much as like you do now. And I think that even in my day and age, if I were to have 10 years ago, if you were to ask me 10 years ago where I thought I would be today in terms of what technologies I was working on, what job options were available, I would not have been correct. And my guess would be that for you're probably going to end up at the end of your career working on something that hasn't even been conceived yet, right? So I would say that you have to have tempered goals, if hopefully that makes sense. I mean, you can have a long-term goal of, well, I want to be an engineer and I want to be employed. I mean, fair enough. But, you know, if the goal is I want to go work for Elon Musk and go to Mars, you know, that's different, right? So I would say temper your goals based on, you know, just be smart about it. I don't know. Hopefully that's an okay answer for you. What advice would you give to aspiring engineers who have lots of different interests? I don't actually think I need to give those people advice, because I think that's actually the strength of engineering. I think as if you haven't decided what you want to do, if you have a lot of different routes that you're thinking about, I think engineering is the right place to start because it opens options for you, right? If you're thinking, well, maybe I want to go into business, maybe I want to be an entrepreneur, whatever. I think that starting with an engineering background that teaches you the technical ability, teaches you how to learn. I mean, that's what engineering does. Engineering teaches you how to learn things. And that's not a bad thing in any field, no matter what you do. So what advice would I give to an aspiring engineer? Probably not much other than just continue to learn, right? In terms of having different interests, I think you're well poised to pursue your different interests based on what presents itself to you at the time. Do I think there are legitimate barriers to girls in engineering at all ages, such as the false idea that engineering is undesirable? Sexism in workplaces and schools, a lack of role models, etc. If so, how do you think we fix this issue? So this is going to be one of those that, given the color of my skin and my identified gender, I'm going to be very careful on how I tread on this question. I went to school even when I went to school, that was 2000, year 2000, right? I graduated in 2000, so I went to college in 2000, graduated in 2004 and 2008. My undergraduate class was, I think, somewhere in like the 40% female. There are a lot of female engineers. Now, there's no doubt that engineering is a male-dominated field historically. But I do feel that that's changing. There was actually a time in currently, just with the way things worked out, I currently manage a team of all males. But that hasn't always been the case. It was actually one point I managed a team of more females than males. So I don't know that is 100% accurate to say that it's a false idea that it's achievable. I think the largest challenge, and this is coming from being a manager, and this is, again, just my perception, but I think the largest, and from my wife is also an engineer, right? And we recently had a child. And I think that is one of the largest challenges that not even necessarily engineers, but I think that professional women face is, there's a very biologic, for individuals who identify themselves as female and decide to, procreate, whatever. I'm, probably not saying the right, PC terms here, but for a woman that decides to have a child, they have to carry the child, and there are biological problems that they have to face in terms of having to be away from work longer. And even though there are many laws and stuff in place, and many companies have great policies in terms of leave and all that, they still have to take that burden. And then even after they go back, there's a lot of, not even just, there are certainly cultural things there, societal things there, but I think that's almost I think that the heart of this question is kind of in, well, it'll be very hard for you to get educated as an engineer. And I don't know that that's true based on my personal experience. But I think that the larger challenge that especially younger women in their, late 20s to early 30s face is the challenge of deciding to be a mother and balancing, what they feel their commitment is to their family versus work and all of that. And I think that that's a very real challenge. So again, I can't say from my personal experience. If so, how do we fix this issue? I think a lot of companies, I think a lot of the forward-looking companies like your Apples, your Intels, your Googles, and so on, I think they're doing a very good job of identifying that problem. There are some companies out there that actually hire women at a bit higher starting pay salary to try and balance that out. Money, money's money and career is a career, right? They're two different things necessarily, but there's childcare considerations, and there's flexible work hours, and there are integration plan. When someone's away from Intel and they decide to come back to work, there's an integration plan. They don't necessarily have to work the desired or the required hours, even after they come back from their very extensive leave. So I think companies are paying attention to that, but I think that it's still a very big issue. think it's still a very big issue, and I don't know necessarily how we fix it, because you can't get inside someone's head and make them not feel responsible for their child, right? So I think that's a very significant portion that women have to deal with, regardless of who they work for and what the societal situation is at the time. I mean, I think it's just a personal issue. So I think there are a lot of challenges there, and I think how we can fix it is to try and be more supportive and helpful in that arena as best we can, right? So that's, again, I'm, the color of my skin and my gender, I have my own slant to that, obviously. I mean, that's what we've learned over the last, several years, but I do think we have to be sensitive to that and help where we can. Right, question number 8. That's probably way more than you wanted to know on question 7. All right, question 8. Do you think there will ever be a shortage of certain types of engineers in the future due to interests and values changing? If so, which ones do you think? Man, that's a great question, Jeremy. I don't know that anybody knows the answer to that, because as I referred to before, things are always changing. That said, I don't think there will. I'm actually going to answer it the other way. I don't think there's ever going to be a lack of employment options for engineers, because they're always going to be in demand because of exactly what I said. There's always going to be people who want to know things and need to solve problems. I personally, right, much of the focus in engineering over the last, decade, probably more, has been on coding and stuff like that, which for obvious reasons, right? We are becoming a more automated society. We have more work to do there, protect ourselves from cyber threats and all that, right? All sorts of stuff. But somebody still needs to run, we still need water. We still need electricity, right? We still need real hands-on engineers. So if you were to ask me, where do I think the pinch is going to be in terms of who's going to get paid more because they're more valuable, I personally think it's going to be the hands-on engineers, because it is, quite frankly, let's be blunt here, it's easier to sit at your desk than it is to go out in the field and look at a pump and see if it's working or not, and to go out and get dirty. What I do, I put on a suit, and sometimes, I've done filter changes. I've gotten chemical splashed on me, in a safe way, right? We wear protective suits, but, we're in there doing stuff, and it's a lot easier to sit at a computer and make code. So I do think that as the world proceeds into, the new world, I actually think that the, hands-on engineering fields, chemical engineering, electrical engineering, and stuff like that, I think that those individuals will probably become more highly desired, because less people want to do it. Because we've, through the pandemic, especially, working from home and stuff like that, it's easier to sit and do your job behind a computer than it is to go out and stick your arm in something, right? So I do think that having a real tangible, I think the real tangible engineers probably will become less and less and less in favor as time goes on. How do you keep up to date with developments in your field? It's been very challenging. It's been very challenging, especially the last year. Things have moved very fast as automation has picked up, and automation has gone out of control. And not in a negative way, but it has gone out of control is the wrong word, but it's gone exponential in the last year as we've tried to improve the systems without having people have to put their hands on it, right? It's been hard. You have to attend the meetings at lunch. We call them brown bags, right? You have to attend the meeting at lunch or after work or, at 7 p.m. to try and figure out these new ways that we can do business. Continuous, I've told you the guys this in the class, and I stand by it. Continuous learning is a requirement of engineering, because, even if you're a computer engineer, the code that you're using, the code that you were taught in college is not going to be whatever code or process or program or whatever is being used for the next 40 years of your career. It's just not. So you have to go learn. What do I enjoy the most about engineering? That's the easiest question you've asked me. The easiest question, or the thing I enjoy most, is that it's never boring. There's no secret. I've been brutally honest with you guys about this. Engineering's hard. Sometimes it requires a lot of hours, and you have to make decisions about, balancing it with your personal life. Engineering is hard. It's demanding, right? The companies we end up working for are, unless you're working for the government or something like that, most of the companies we have are private companies, and they're competing for business, and they can be pretty demanding. But most of us still go to work, and it's not just about the money. It's about the fact that we enjoy doing what we do because there are problems to solve. And when you solve a problem, like, it's pretty awesome, right? Like, we fixed this and we just saved the company, $1 million or more, right? I mean, we had a cost savings project recently that we put in that was, almost $1 billion, right? Over the course of the globe, over the course of a year. That's, real money. And it's awesome, right? Now, it's not like we see that money, but I mean, still, you're paid to do what you do, and you're motivated to do it, and that's what keeps you going every day. So I think that was one of the easier questions you asked me, excuse me. So yeah, that's it. So yeah, that's going through your questions. Hopefully that was helpful to you in the manner. So yeah, anyway, thank you for asking me this. Hopefully I was helpful and it got you what you needed. If not, please let me know. We can, go deep dive down in more stuff. But I'm very excited for you. You seem like a very intelligent young man, and I'm really excited to see where you can go. I really hope that you continue to communicate to me as you develop. If you need more help, I can be a mentor or whatever I can do to help you. I'm very excited to see where you end up in the next, for you, you're a junior, so 5-6 years where you end up. So anyway, thank you. It was an honor to do this. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. And thank you very much.